Okay, so I just saw this contest thing on Facebook like 2 hours ago, and I will be out of town soon, so I figured I'd apply now. I actually went to Egypt in January of 2015 and haven't stopped thinking about it since. In fact, this photo and that photo I took. But I wanted to apply for this because I've been thinking about it ever since. And my life's goal is to go back as many times as I can. But honestly, for me, my concerns about Islam aren't exactly Islam itself, but my own personal prejudices and prejudices of typical Americans, white Americans. Honestly, with our new president and everything he's trying to implement, it's starting to feel like we were repeating World War II, and that is very, very troubling. Especially with if you replace the word Jew with Muslim, that's basically what's happening today. In fact, it's actually started to affect people I know who I actually trust and I know to be open minded. A few years ago, my mom woke me up and made me watch this anti Islam video talking about how, oh, well, all these Islamic attacks happen and yet not all Muslims speak out against it. Why are they not speaking out? And she told me if I didn't agree with the video, she was going to kick me out of the house. It was the strangest thing that's ever happened, and it's that kind of xenophobic, Islamophobic attitude that's scary because it can affect anybody. It affected my mom. I mean, luckily just for that day, she's very open minded, but I still think about that sometimes. If it can affect somebody in her level. And I know people, in my family who are mostly, open minded and everything, but it's still a worry. And I've tried to open my mom's mind, and keep everybody's mind open that I know, because I actually took Arabic for 2 semesters in college, and I became friends with some girls who practiced Islam. They were from Saudi Arabia, and they helped change some of my ideas about Islam and Saudi Arabia, because they talked about how they couldn't drive, but they seem to understand pop culture and everything, and it's really about understanding it's a religion. I think another part of it that's a problem is that we assume Islam means person of color, which I mean often, at least in the Middle East and in Indonesia, where there actually are the most Muslims, they're typically people of color, but I've seen videos with white men who are Muslim. I mean, it doesn't matter your skin color, but for some reason we just kind of assume that people of color, in Middle Eastern countries are Islamic. And I mean, that's not necessarily the case, but it's just frustrating. And I mean, when I went to Egypt, that helped, to change some of my perspectives, because I went on a tour and I talked to this lady, and she talked about how like Muslims there celebrated Christmas. They would get trees and celebrate, with their Christian friends. I mean, yeah, of course, there's definitely tension in some spots with churches and the beheadings in Libya, but we consider those extremists. I mean, like I told my mom, we don't make white people apologize for the shootings that we have here. But all of a sudden, all Muslims, are supposed to speak up for this one thing. It's that herd mentality, and it's really awful. And I mean, Christians aren't supposed to apologize for their extremists, like the Westboro Baptist Church, but all of a sudden, all Muslims are supposed to, say, oh, that's not us. You're supposed to know it's not them. Not all Muslims are the same. I just. So that's more of my concern is not necessarily Islam, but our reaction to Islam. I mean, like I said, it's becoming almost World War II. Like, I mean, when you hear about immigrants wanting to hide, and when you hear about Muhammad Ali's son being asked if he was Muslim in an airport, it's starting to feel very much like World War II, with people hiding and people being asked. I mean, I'm afraid they're going to have to hold identification papers. It's terrifying. So I think, in the future, I just want to, not necessarily quell people's concerns, but show them why they're wrong. And I mean, and also I used to have a bad idea about the hijab. I used to think that they were forced to wear it, and I know in some areas that's the case, but a lot of women that I know who wear them have said, no, I want to wear it. It's empowering for me. It's my choice. And that's what feminism is about too, is choice. If you want to be modest, fine. If you don't want to be modest, fine. So, I mean, again, having that class in college really, really helped me learn. So I would just say that, again, it's more of my concern about how people react to it, especially for the next 4 years. I'm getting worried. But I saw something online that said somebody overseas was talking about, how people have been standing up for Muslims and how it's a great thing. And an American was like, why is it great? Trump is doing all these terrible things. And they were like, because you all have stood up for us, and it shows how much you care about us. And that's what the United States is about. That's what the Constitution is about. That's what the First Amendment is about. If you love America, then you should love freedom of religion. Freedom of religion does not just mean freedom of Christianity. It means freedom of Islam. And Islamic people, they should be welcomed into our country. Nobody should be considered an alien.